Staying on theme with Auburn's wide receivers, the defensive line looks much larger than a year ago.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen or second listen every single day. It's a happy hour edition going live a little earlier than normal to recap Auburn's second practice. Bottom line is I think Auburn's farther along now than they were a year ago. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but overall observations. I spent more time next to the defensive line today, and they are much larger than they were a year ago. The addition of Isaiah Rakes, he's a guy that I wanted to spend some extra time watching today because he's important. That battle at the defensive tackle spot between Jason Jones and Isaiah Rakes is very important. I also wanted to see more of Kieran Crawford. Been talking to him up all offseason. Rakes looks great. I was pleased with how quick he moves at his size. So the drill that the defensive line, the interior defensive line was doing for the bulk of the 15 to 20-ish minutes that we were out there was they were working on engaging double teams and then kind of sliding through. And the three that were rotating that were getting a lot of time with new defensive line coach Vontrell King-Williams, it was Jason Jones, Isaiah Rakes, and then Quintrell Jamison Travis. And so those three, like two would double the other one, and they would work on splitting the double team. And all three of them seemed to do a pretty good job at the drill. But the thing I loved about watching this, and really the main reason I didn't walk away, is because Vontrell King-Williams, I mean, he coaches with such passion, such energy. And what did we hear when Auburn lost the defensive line coach and like everybody kind of wanted to promote Vontrell, and ultimately they did, was because like everybody loved his energy, how infectious he was, and what he brought to the table. And boy, do I get it. We talked about this a little bit in spring too, but boy, do I get it. I understand why people want to play for that guy. So that's exciting stuff. I thought Isaiah Rakes looked good. He's not as tall as I thought he was, but he's low to the ground. I could see him being difficult to move if you're an offensive center or an offensive guard. And if they do some interesting things, because I think Jason could play the three technique as well. If you put Rakes and Jason in on the field at the same time and maybe a third and short situation, that's just a lot to move. That's going to be something that we see earlier on. Something that we saw that was a change in the spring, we're continuing to see it in the fall, and that is the interior defensive linemen are one group. And then in the spring, we saw all of the edge players in individual drills in another group. Well, today we saw the edge players be split up into ends and into to buck linebackers. So there was a group that was Jamonta Waller, Jalen McLeod, and Joseph Phillips and Kieran Crawford, which were your edge guys, which the Joseph Phillips thing is interesting. He's kind of moved around a little bit, but I think that's where he should end up. I think he's long enough and has explosive enough to be effective as a pass rusher. And then the defensive ends were Keldrick Fox, Zacchaeus Walker, and Amaris Williams. And we've talked about some of the versatility of some of those guys, especially Amaris Williams. And to some extent, Jamonta Waller. I think he's more of an end or more of a buck than a defensive end. But to see that clear split kind of confirms a lot of the talking points that we had about the defensive front over the course of summer. So not too far off on that. I've got some video of quarterbacks and wide receivers that I'm just going to kind of play while I'm talking, so y'all have something to look at. But overall, the big picture across the roster with wide receivers, with the offensive line, with the defensive line, it's just overall size. I mean, Auburn is just much larger. Here's Cam Coleman about to go through a rep. It's either constantly coaching these guys in between every single rep there. But to me, there's just so much excitement about this roster, just the eye test. It looks different. Yes, it's been 2 quick practices in fall camp, but there's just not a whole lot of, there hasn't been a whole lot of one-on-ones, but we have seen a little bit towards the end of the viewing window today. We did see a few one-on-ones with offensive line and defensive line, but with where they were standing on the field, it was kind of hard to see. Sure, some of that may have been by design, which is fine, but we did get to see a good one-on-one rep from Jaden Muskrat, excuse me, on the offensive line, who I think he had a pretty cool moment there. Let's see. I think I got some other stuff here. So let's go with this one. Yeah, so a lot of wide receiver work today, which is obviously super exciting. So other things that we saw, Robert Lewis went first in receiver drills. This was the order. I don't think this matters, but I'm just telling you what we saw. Robert Lewis, Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane, Greg McConico Jr., Will Upton, Jake Cruz, and Sam Jackson. I believe that group is the slot receivers, which makes sense. But it is interesting to see Malcolm Simmons with the slot guys. So take that for what it's worth. But that was surprising to me. Something else that we saw was the quarterbacks and who they were paired with. So Peyton is paired with Jarquez Hunter. And then you've got Holden that was paired with Damari, sporting the number 0 there. And then Hank paired with Jeremiah Cobb. And then you've got Walker, who was paired with 35. And I'm blanking on who 35. Oh, that's Justin Jones, who just got the scholarship. And then here's some more video of wide receivers engaging and blocking, right? Because you've got all this size, and they spent some extra time kind of hitting a bag coming out of a route, which is going to be part of this RPO offense. No question about it. You know, you got to run your route first, and then depending on what the read is, you're going to have to be able to block. So, I mean, guys, we didn't really get to see a ton today, but the overall eye test in all of this is Auburn's roster is larger than it was a season ago, which is very, very exciting because there's just, that was the weakness. I don't think the scheme was awful. I mean, defensively, play calling, I think, was bad on offense. But all in all, like, Auburn should just be in such a better spot than it was a year ago. I mean, these receivers that you're seeing on the screen right now, it's just different. They look different than they did a season ago. So exciting stuff. Go ahead and drop your questions in the comments section if you want. And maybe I saw them. Defensive backs, with where they're positioned on the practice field, they're the farthest away from us. So I didn't spend any time watching them because you couldn't see them today. But as far as defensive line, I spent a little time watching the offensive line. Spent most of the time watching the receivers and the defensive line today. But all in all, super, super exciting stuff when you talk about everything that's happening with Auburn football's program. So go ahead and drop your questions or comments or reactions to fall camp so far, and we'll react to those in just a moment right here on this live edition of Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine buying a part for your car, truck, SUV, whatever vehicle it is that you drive? Can you imagine getting a part anywhere else? No, it doesn't make any sense. eBay, they've got this eBay guaranteed fit. So your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. The biggest difference from a year ago, and I can't stress it enough, is just the overall size of the roster. We don't have a ton of data points so far. We've got 45 minutes-ish that we saw yesterday, and a lot of that was stretching. And then we saw some indie drills today. But the guys are larger. The guys are, from an eye test point of view, they look stronger than they did a year ago. Don't see a whole lot of questions, so this may be pretty short. Colin asked, have I seen anything yet that's got you hesitant? I think stopping the run consistently is still a concern, and then just generating a pass rush, because we don't know what this looks like unless we see it live. And so defensive line, you could do stuff, you can pass the eye test, you can do all the drills, but My biggest concern going into spring and leaving spring and now going to fall is still the defensive line. They've done a lot on the roster to fix that, and that's why I really wanted to see Isaiah Rakes today. But I'm still hesitant about the defensive front. Yes, yes. What we've seen so far has not changed that, and I don't think my opinion on that's going to be swayed until we see it in a game. That's just where we're at on this. AU Tiger Blogging says Camden Brown looks good. I'm with you. I love Camden Brown in the context of like where he's going to be asked to play. I think we were asking Camden to do too much in previous seasons. I think Camden Brown is your fourth or fifth option in the pecking order of things. I think it's solid. I think it's great. I think it's great. Nick ask, who do you think will be a sleeper to have a breakout season or great impact? Does Kayin Lee count? Because I think Kayin Lee is going to be a breakout star in the SEC this year. So I'll say Kayin Lee. And if you want a deeper sleeper, let me think. I think Kieran Crawford has a great chance to be third on the team in sacks. Kieran Crawford, those count, Nick? Let me know if those don't count. Jeremy Rains photo, is that your real name? Says, how does Hank Brown look? All the quarterbacks look about the same. I mean, they haven't in front of us, they're not doing anything but throwing against air. And so I will say they look better on air than previous teams that we've seen, which is great. But yeah, I don't think it's some crazy. They haven't really been pushed in front of us. We don't know what they did yesterday after we left. We don't know what they've done today after we left. But I think, I think all of them look great. Prince Major says, how does Perry look? Perry looks great. I mean, that's probably the most exciting point of camp so far, just because we hadn't seen Perry and there's been so much energy around Perry. And like, we knew he was big and we've seen him play in his high school stuff and all that. It's exciting. But seeing Perry stand next to the other wide receivers, knowing that he's the age that he is really exciting stuff. In fact, I was kind of in the camp of like, let's hold off. Now I get it. I was off on that. I think. I mean, Hugh Freeze seems to really want to play him early. Let's see. Anything else here? War Tiger, can you book for Rivaldo for a little bit? I think Rivaldo Fairweather is so exciting because we know what he's able to do. We know what he's able to do as a pass catcher and stuff that he could do with the ball not in his hands as far as route running and finding space. I do want to see him better with the ball in his hands, but also we didn't really ask him to do a whole lot of that. But the exciting thing about Rivaldo are the pieces that you've added around him, because yesterday, every time they went with the full ones, we saw Cam Coleman at one outside receiver, and we saw Keandre Lambert-Smith at the other outside wide receiver, both new players, both outside receivers that we think are significantly better than what Auburn had a year ago. And I just think from a coverage standpoint, you're not going to be able to focus as much on the middle of the field as you did a year ago, and not focus as much on Rivaldo as you did a year ago. It's also interesting with how you choose to cover him, because you can't put a linebacker on him, so you have to designate a safety. And if you bring a safety too close to the line of scrimmage, well, that also has to defend Jarquez Hunter and these running backs. It's just kind of a problem when it comes to creating a mismatch. So that's obviously super, super exciting. JP asked, overall attitude of the team. I got asked this on another show yesterday. I went on Uncorked with Taylor Korn. And she asked me, like, she used the word culture instead of attitude, which I think is similar. But I don't think like the attitude or culture was ever off. It's just they probably didn't know each other because Auburn had to flip their roster a year ago. And so I think bringing the roster back, bringing all these key guys back for another year is crucial. I mean, you're thinking about all these key guys with the exception of the freshmen, obviously. So take out Perry, take out Cam. But all these key guys now have been here for a year. Your Peyton Thorns, your entire running back room, your entire offensive line minus Percy Lewis. I mean, we can go on and on. Linebackers, defensive backs minus Jaron Thompson. Like, that's a big deal. None of these players knew each other a year ago. And to me, that's a big difference. So if you want to call that attitude or culture, we can call it whatever you want. But I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Barry asked, how is the D-line depth? We don't know. I don't think there's any way we can know that until the season starts. It was a concern. It was a concern leaving spring. That's why they added a bunch of defensive linemen. You hope it was enough. You hope they perform. But I think they're going to need a few guys to step up a little bit. So, cool. Awesome, guys. Well, I'm going to hop off. Thank you guys for tuning in for a few minutes as we went live. But be sure to check out all of our written work at auburndaily.com. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Hey, I put out the call yesterday. Help us get over 17K subs. Y'all blew that out of the water. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was our preseason goal, and we hit it with 4 weeks to spare. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Very, very cool. Once again, like the video, please subscribe. Hey, we will see you. I think I'm going to put up a show tomorrow morning because I'm recording with Luke Robinson of Locked On Bama tonight is we're supposed to, and we're going to kind of debate the importance of in-state recruiting, which is fascinating. So I think we're going to drop that tomorrow morning. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys so much. See y'all soon. This has been Locked On Auburn.